we prefer to be known simply as Ed and Lorraine Warren.
Do me a favor and tell me a little bit about your group first.
Yeah, that'd be good. So we started in 2019 at Keystone College, which is just like tiny speck of liberal arts school. And the basic goal was just to give people a place to talk about paranormal experiences and not face that ridicule or that judgment that you get in a lot of other circles.
Do you get that from the paranormal? Really?
Oh yeah, a little bit here and there. So not too much of an investigative force, at least not yet. But maybe when the pandemic's over, we can kind of get to that. And what basically happened was we were starting to pick up some steam last spring, and then it all just kind of crashed, in those couple days, and been trying to pick it up ever since.
Okay. Well, why don't we start with this? Let me tell you a bit about the Warren Legacy Foundation and what it is, what we're trying to accomplish. And then we'll talk a little bit about where you're headed.
Sounds good.
Well, first off, the Warren Legacy Foundation is something that was founded because of the movies. And we started getting requests for help from all over the world, emails constantly. And I went to my grandmother and I said, listen, Graham, no one knows what the New England Society for Psychic Research is. And I want to make sure that your mission and your name continues. And we also need to expand. And in the whole world, they do know who you are. So I want to create a foundation that can be a global outreach. And that's what we've created. My grandmother loved the idea. Our goals are to educate the public so that maybe we have less cases, to help those in trouble, of course, to also help people with psychic abilities who are overwhelmed by those abilities, help them to navigate their lives, deal with their anxiety, things of that nature. And also, and this one is pretty important to me, it's to educate the next generation of researchers and to help them to adopt our code of ethics. Basically, our code of ethics is very similar to the Hippocratic Oath. We don't believe in publicizing our cases. We don't believe in giving private details of families out. It can be incredibly devastating. My background's in psychology, so I come at it a lot differently. One of the things that is important to me is that people are not running around, going into abandoned buildings, trying to pick up what's there, because those places are fairly dangerous often. And I don't want anybody to get hurt. Now, having said that, I broke my own rule last week. I was working with a team of paranormal investigators from Mexico, and they asked me to go to a house to help them. And when I went there, it was actually a ruin. But I did go. And this might actually interest you guys. But I have never used my abilities in public before. And this was over a live Facebook feed, or no, YouTube feed. There's a link on my Facebook page if you're interested. But for an hour and a half, we were at this place. As I was walking down the stone steps, I could feel a choking feeling here. And I couldn't understand why, because if I'm going to use my abilities, I don't want information. When you have information, it can color your perceptions. So I then went under the house and I said, oh, there's a man here, right here. Oh, he's moving away. So I kind of walked a little more and there he was again. The ghost meter went off. I'm not a fan of these gadgets, but at least this time it confirmed what I was already feeling. And I said, is this a gringo? An American. And they said, yeah. And he killed himself? Yeah, he hung himself. He hung himself. That explains this. He says he's really happy and he just wants to be left alone. But I knew that was a lie. I said, is this guy's name Paul? I said, no, it was Phil or Philippe. So I was kind of close. Which, by the way, is another warning for you. Don't ever trust a psychic. I don't care if you're all psychics and you believe in all of this completely and everything else. I'm a psychic and I don't trust me. My grandmother was a psychic and she was probably the best one in the world. And if she was right 70% of the time, she was the best. But what we say, when somebody thinks of us as a psychic, what we say has authority. So be very careful. What you do as a professional investigator, researcher, has a real impact on people's lives. And you should always keep the people you're serving at the front of what you're doing. They are all that's important. So anyway, I was there and he kept walking away from me. He didn't want to deal with me. He didn't want to have anything to do with me. He kept walking over to this woman. And every single time I'd walk over, I was like, oh, he said, yeah, he just moved over here to me. Yeah, I know, he keeps following you. It was kind of tragic. He had actually killed his 2 dogs before he killed himself because he didn't want them to suffer. And then he had hung himself exactly where I felt him. After I had a long discussion with him, it came out that he was afraid. He was afraid he was going to hell because he had committed suicide. I explained to him he doesn't have to worry about that. That's not going to happen. That's not what happens. And then I had asked my grandmother, I said, look, if you're here, Graham, let me smell lavender because it's her favorite scent. Padre Pio, if you're here, let me smell roses. And I was saying this under my breath. I wasn't saying it in a way that anybody else could hear. And that woman who kept being chased by the ghost, she said, I smell roses or flowers. Do you smell it? I was like, no. But I did. I for a split second, 3 times, I smelled something. I don't know for sure it was lavender or if it was roses, but I definitely smelled flowers. My nose isn't that great. He did pass over. There's still residual energy there. You can still get that choking feeling if you happen to be a sensitive, but you're not going to find him anymore. He did pass over. So I'm pretty excited about that. That was one of these really nice, quick, easy things to do. So yeah, that's the kind of stuff that we often deal with. 90% of what we deal with is psychological or physical. There's a woman right now we're dealing with who believes, and there is some evidence that there are spirits bothering her. I've heard some. On the other hand, I've seen a lot of bad evidence that this is probably just psychological. And she thinks that there's a man and a woman haunting her, that it, give me, as she puts it, it touches my butthole. And she sticks a vibrator between her butt cheeks so that she can't feel them bothering her. She also tends to have a lot of sex so that she can't feel them bothering her. I have suggested that she gets both a physical evaluation where she talks to the doctor and explains all of her symptoms without saying, the ghost pulled my toe. No, just I feel a pulling sensation on my toe. But also talk to her psychologist. What you're going to find in this field is there's always an underlying reason why one person is vulnerable and another is not. There's always something. Are they an alcoholic? Are they a drug user? Are they bipolar? Autistics. Honestly, I believe they are the next step in our evolution. I really do. They are extraordinary. They also are incredibly gifted. I mean, it's not a hard, fast rule, but so many autistic people, people on the spectrum, have abilities. And you get a lot of poltergeist phenomena from that. So that's my start. What else would you like to know? Please don't ask for the story of Annabelle. I've only recited that about 75 times this week. I have videos. Yes, Heather, come on, lift it, turn
Okay.
off your,
Doesn't have
everybody can turn
anything
off
to
your things if
do,
you want.
has nothing to do with Annabelle or the movies or anything like that.
Oh, the movies are crap. Just so everyone knows, The Conjuring was fine. Conjuring 2 took 2 real cases and then threw in The Nun and a bunch of ridiculous stuff about shouting a demon's name and that gets rid of a demon. God, I wish it was that easy. And then the Annabelle movies are absolute fantasies. There's a real Annabelle. It really is dangerous, but they haven't done a movie about it.
So are you, you have skills, you have psychic ability skills, you have paranormal skills. Are you an empath as well? And if you are, when you're going on investigations, how are you discerning the energy in a space versus the energy of the people around you or the family members in the house that you're investigating if they're there?
Okay. First off, I don't like to label. One of the things I learned in college was the power of labeling and how devastating it can be. People need to put things into their own little boxes, but when you put it into a box, you limit it. So whether you're an empath, a medium, a light trance medium, a psychometrist, whatever it is, you're just putting limits on yourself. And I choose not to do that. At the end of the day, though, if I had to say something, yeah, of course, I can pick up on people's emotions. I can pick up on people and get a general sense of who they are. I will not go beyond that because back when I was in college, I used to do it a lot, and I'd read auras, and you'd be amazed at how quickly you can lose friends and terrify strangers when you start revealing their secrets that they don't want to have revealed. Yeah, everyone wants a reading, but as soon as you do it, then you're a bad guy because you should not have seen those insecurities. You know, when I go, so in other words, I have got well over 30 years of experience of blocking my abilities, except on cases. So I'm a unique case in that regard. I didn't want to use my abilities ever, except on cases. So when I go in, I don't have people with me when I walk into the house. I walk around, I see what I can feel, I see where I'm feeling it, and I record my impressions. Once I've done that, then I go back and I start talking to people and get a sense of what I'm dealing with. Even before we go on a case, though, I have a very good sense of the people involved because we have intake processors who do the interviews, and they are figuring out, are we dealing with a real case or are we dealing with something psychological only? And what kind of help are we supposed to offer these folks? The pandemic has made the actual boots on the ground really hard. In this past year, I've been in Spain, Portugal, Scotland, England, Brazil, South Carolina, all of whom were suffering terribly under the pandemic. And now I'm in Costa Rica, which honestly, you know, if you've got $200, $300, buy a ticket because this is paradise. It is amazing. And they've handled the pandemic really well. But back to your question, when you go into the house, for me, it's easy because I'm not dealing with the family. So that's how I separate it. I'm long-winded, sorry.
Oh, no, it's okay. It's okay. So then the second part of this is when you're investigating, like we are familiar with the concept that things that were never human lie and can change their appearance to be like things that were human. Is that correct? And how do you discern, I guess by vibing, how do you discern whether you're dealing with an actual, former human entity versus something pretending to be one?
Right. Okay. Yes, inhuman and human entities can lie. That's absolutely a fact. And even a human spirit, when it appears to you, is giving you an image of the way they think of themselves in life. So they kind of change their shape in a way too. You're not going to see your 95-year-old grandfather. You're going to see your 60-year-old grandfather, because that's the image he has in his head. For me, yes, energy. It's about the heaviness of the energy. When I'm dealing with something evil or out to hurt someone in some way, the energy feels incredibly ponderous, and it is a weight pushing down on you. It's nothing like human energy. Having said that, just a quick warning, Annabelle. The whole story of Annabelle comes from a medium who got it wrong.
Right.
And they thought it was a child, which I'm sure is why you brought this up. They thought it was a child, and so they welcomed it into the house. And the medium probably should have known better, but they're not perfect. My very first case when I was 16, was a case where a little boy, all dressed in white, appeared in the bedroom doorway of the parents in this small house and said, "Where do all the lonely people go?" And I apologize, I don't remember at this moment how we got this information, but the story was, this was supposedly the twin brother of the uncle that the family had inherited the house from. And when they were little kids, he was pushed out of a moving carriage under the wheels of the carriage, and he was killed. And he was killed by his twin brother when they were horsing around. Now, that had created a great deal of empathy for that child, creating a spiritual attachment. Once the emotional attachment's there, then you get the spiritual attachment. And they called in a priest because they thought that they could, send this child to heaven. And the priest went in, did a complete blessing, and the child was gone forever. Unfortunately, that night, a big hulking black shape took its place. When you're dealing with something that you believe isn't human, or even if you're not sure, then you use your faith and you do something called religious provocation, where you use ritual to force this thing to reveal its true identity. If you don't have faith in something and you're going on these cases, then you're going in without any defenses at all. You have to have some faith in some higher power. In my experience, God doesn't give a damn how you label God. God doesn't care how you look for God. There is no one path to the top of the mountain. There are an infinite number of paths. It's only the idiot on the ground telling everybody, don't go that way, don't go that way, who never gets any closer to God. But your faith and your focus are necessary. You have to focus your intention, what you want to have done in that household. And ritual helps you to focus your intention, but it only works with faith. If you don't have the faith, it doesn't work at all. And that goes doubly true for the family you're trying to help. If they don't have faith in what you're doing, it won't work. So if it's a Jewish family and you go in there screaming about, in the name of Jesus Christ, be gone, chances are it's not going to work.
Gotcha.
Bill
I
has a
believe-
question,
Ooh,
if
sorry,
you
go
can, Heather.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. He's going to speak on mine, even though his picture's up there. Go ahead.
So you talked about the emotional before. There are occasions when I go into rooms and I feel the presence of somebody, and I feel their emotions, and it's just overwhelming. How do you stop or protect yourself from the emotions?
Well, there are a couple, well, actually, there are so many different ways of doing that. But if you're an empath and you're being overwhelmed by your abilities, I actually have the foundation actually has 2 psychic support groups. There's one in English, one in Spanish. The one in English has got well over 600 people in it around the world. I can give you guys a link to that. I'll put it in our little chat group that we have over on Messenger, and you can share it, please, Heather.
Thank you.
But first, start wearing either obsidian, onyx, or tourmaline. Those black rocks are very, very good for grounding your psychic abilities. Remember that they have a crystalline structure, and that each one of them is different in that way. So they focus energy differently. I mean, we use them on our computers, our cameras, our watches, everywhere. Radios, televisions used to. I don't know if they still do. But there's a reason for that. There's actually a scientific purpose. The next thing, though, when you join the group, you'll see. But one thing is using something called the white light to protect yourself. It's also known as the Christ light, the light of Allah, the light of Krishna. It really doesn't matter. What you're doing is you're closing your eyes. You're taking some deep cleansing breaths in through the nose, hold it for a few seconds, and out through the mouth. Then you picture a warm, white, loving light deep inside of your chest, and feel that growing and spreading throughout your body, filling you up. You can feel it tingling and warm, moving down through your legs and up through your arms and your shoulders and arms and hands, and then up through your head. And then I want you to visualize the light bursting out of the pores of your skin in the most brilliant white light in the universe. So bright that you cannot be seen inside of it, just a bubble of light. A lot of people get hung up on, oh, well, I can't see the light. Well, that's fine. It isn't about seeing the light. It's about your intention to call on that little bit of God that we all carry inside of us to surround you, to envelop you, and to protect you. It's your intention and your focus that are important. Once you've done that, imagine a mirrored surface on the outside of that white bubble of light, bouncing that other energy away from you. That's a great protection. Now, the way to use this properly is to do it every morning and every night while you're in bed at your most relaxed. In addition, if you're somebody who suffers from anxiety or panic attacks, or just feels completely drained after dealing with people, go outside and in your bare feet, get on real earth, grass, dirt, something like that. And again, close your eyes, take some deep cleansing breaths. And when you're centered, I want you to picture a white rod or string going from the top of your head straight down through your entire body and deep into the earth like a lightning rod.
Okay.
And through visualization, I want you to visualize all of that negative energy you picked up draining down through that rod deep into the earth to ground out. You can even use the aura of energy around your hands to help brush it off of you.
Okay.
It is quantum physics at work, and it really is powerful. As a matter of fact, it is actually also a treatment for anxiety and panic disorders. And it's also a treatment for depression. Just walking outside in your bare feet on earth does give an ionic energy exchange. It is actually very powerful.
Okay.
Can I follow up to, he already has a black it's not tourmaline, it's onyx on his neck. I gave him angel aura quartz. Is that okay as well to be with it, or should he only wear the one? Like it's a
What kind of
clear
quartz?
quartz. Angel
Clear
aura.
quartz?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Clear.
clear quartz is great. Clear quartz actually emphasizes the ability of the other crystal that it's paired with. So
Well,
that's
thank you,
actually
because
very good.
that's what I thought, but I didn't want to be wrong. So I wanted to make
Oh no,
sure.
and
Thank
don't
you.
get me wrong, I'm no expert on crystalmancy
No,
or
but
anything of that sort.
that's how I felt too. Like I thought it would help him to just let it flow off of him. So good. Thank you.
My pleasure.
I do.
There we go.
Okay, this is pretty particular, I guess, but it's something that I just recently was watching stuff about and found it very intriguing. So, have you experienced physical mediumship yourself? And if you have,
No.
you haven't. What are your thoughts on it? Do you think that it's dangerous compared to other types, and what would you recommend to somebody that is looking to experience it?
It's funny, I just added somebody to the foundation today. He's a gay young man. One thing that's really weird is, and I have a theory on this, but almost every single psychic man I know is gay. It's really rare that they're heterosexual. I think it's because they have to be hyper aware because of the way cultures have treated them. So they're more aware of how others feel. That's my only theory, that it's an adaptation based on need, because we're all psychic. But he was asking me the same question because he has the ability. I've channeled spirits, but I won't let them come into me because you don't know what you're opening yourself up to. Having said that, if Alex, if this is a path that you want to go down, how far away from New York City are you?
I'm in upstate New York.
Okay, so
Oh.
not terribly close.
Hmm.
I have no idea whether or not there is an Umbanda temple near you, but Umbandistas are, it's a Afro-Brazilian religion. It was something that is also a combination of Christianity, and it's similar in some ways to Santeria or Voodoo, but just like all of the different religions that have come out of Africa, it has its own flavor. And a lot of this one is based on Brazilian beliefs. And there is a temple in New York City. There's one in Washington, D.C. They're all over the world. And the interesting thing they do is the priests and priestesses are all physical mediums. And they let people, or they let spirits enter them, but they only let one from each school of spirit that they deal with. Some Umbanda temples deal with 6 schools, some with 7, some with 5. And if you're an old sailor from the old sailor school, there's only one old sailor that goes with one priest. It isn't all mixed up, but they teach you how to do this as you go. And then you in turn channel these spirits for the congregation. In Portugal, I was lucky enough to get to go visit on a regular basis for a couple of months an Umbanda temple. And one of my friends is a priestess there, another one's a priest. It is definitely, if you're going to learn physical mediumship, that would be the safest way I can imagine doing it.
Hmm.
Another way, if you are a talented person and you join the psychic support group, then you should look for my friend George, because George is a medium and he knows so many great teachers who can help you with that.
Thank you.
Sure. Come on, Maria, what do you got for me?
Okay, so it's about the museum with the haunted objects. So I know your parents are in charge of it now that Lorraine passed, right?
That's right.
So what happens after they pass? are you going to take care of it?
I assume so. Yeah, we haven't discussed it, but yeah, it'll probably end up being my responsibility. And wherever I am, that's where I'll bring the museum, and I'll make sure that I put it behind plexiglass so nobody can touch anything. There's a misconception about this because now there are a whole bunch of people out there
That's my
collecting
follow-up
items.
question. I was gonna say, there are other museums of haunted objects that people have. Are they safe to go to?
No, it wasn't. It's always been a prison. It's never been a museum. It's a place to protect the public from those energies. People ask us, why don't you destroy those things? Well, you can't destroy energy. You can release it, but you can't destroy it. And once you've released the thing that's anchoring it to this world, then it's just going to go back to where it came from and look for a new way to get back here and cause more trouble. This way, it's trapped.
Okay, yeah, I have a feeling like about the other haunted museums of objects that they weren't safe
Yeah.
to go to.
We had a case a few months ago. A woman had been collecting haunted items, and she was being haunted. And she was sure it had nothing to do with the museum. It had to do with her ex-husband, and it had to do with her son. And they had gone into a graveyard and gotten drunk. But it wasn't the haunted items that I've been collecting for years.
I had another question. If I could ask you another question while I have you.
Mhm.
So I like to go to historical places, and some of them are haunted.
Yeah, they sure are.
So I'll go to places and I'll capture things on video or recording, because there's so much energy there. Is that okay for me to be doing?
If you're going into a safe place, sure. Prison, an asylum, things like that, you might get an attachment that you didn't want. So I don't recommend it. As a matter of fact, I went into a sanatorium here in Costa Rica when I first arrived. My team said, hey, we're going on a field trip and we got a bus. Come on, let's go. And next thing I know, I'm at this place. And they wanted me to do tours there. I said no. The energy was overwhelming. It took one of my members and it made her ill, and we had to remove her. It's a tourist attraction. It's called Sanatorio Duran, like Duran Duran, here in Costa Rica. And there are spirits there. It started out as a tuberculosis asylum. And when tuberculosis was under control, then it became an insane asylum. And that's when things really got dark. There was a children's wing there. A child committed suicide in one location I found. The bathrooms, there was a lot of abuse in the bathrooms. The doctor there was just one evil son of a bitch. He knew what was going on and he actively hid it. Yeah. So the answer is no. You need to protect yourself ahead of time. And I did. I protected my team. I had them under the white light and everything else, but it was still overwhelming for one of them. So be careful and never, ever go anywhere alone.
Yeah.
And let people know where you're going before you're there, people who are not there with you. So if you end up falling through the floor or something, they can come and find you.
Okay. Good to know. But what you said is so true. I have gone to places that were haunted historical places, and I always get two feelings. Either I get this feeling like run for your life, this very overwhelming feeling like I'm not safe. And if I do capture anything, like you could tell it's not something I want to be around at all.
Yeah.
Or I have like a calm feeling, and I won't even realize I captured anything until maybe the day after or weeks later, and I'm going through my stuff and I can't believe there's stuff on there. I didn't even realize I had captured anything while I was
It's
there.
really important that you listen to your feelings.
Yeah.
You've got a gift and you should listen to it. That's really important.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, sure. Oh, quickly. So after the sanatorium, I did get visited at my apartment. That was the point of the story, is yes, you can pick up an attachment. Somebody followed me home, turned on the TV in the middle of the night a couple of times, was running on my roof like a 10-year-old child all night long. It just annoyed the hell out of me. It doesn't scare me, it just annoys me. So I had to do a house cleansing and got rid of it, but it's something to be aware of.
Is there a way to actively try to avoid attachments and leaving things where they are at and not bringing them with you, or no?
Sure, don't go. But honestly, if you're psychic, your aura burns more brightly than a normal person's. You're a lighthouse in the darkness for these spirits, and you will attract them. And if you go in there without protection, without some kind of ritual to help you at the beginning and to cleanse you afterward, yeah, you can pick something up very easily. You need to set ground rules. That's one of the things I've found in my research around the world. No matter what religion it is, if they're dealing with spirit, they set the rules. They say, this is where you're able to be, this area with us. When we say it's time to go, it's over. There are times that doesn't work. For instance, Ouija boards, because you can set up all the protections in the world that you want. You can surround yourself with salt and douse yourself in gallons of holy water. But the moment you, through your own free will, open that door, you've given up the protection you asked for in the first place. So, yeah, always be careful.
Makes sense.
One of the pet peeves I have, and I realize I'm talking to people who are new in this world for the most part. People watch the YouTube videos and they watch this incredibly stupid crap on television. I mean, don't get me wrong, The Demonologist, The Devil in Connecticut, Satan's Harvest, those books are about real cases and they're really well written, and you will get good information from them. Deliver Us from Evil, my grandparents' first book, same thing. But the other books, my grandparents never actually wrote anything. They had ghostwriters, and sometimes those ghostwriters were not that good. A number of the cases I worked on, they wrote up and they were terrible. In a Dark Place, which ended up becoming The Haunting in Connecticut. That was my case. I couldn't sit through more than 45 minutes of the movie. It was awful. I know for a fact several years ago, A Haunting in Connecticut, the original documentary, was on YouTube. It was a Discovery Channel documentary. That's really, really quite good. I'm not a part of it because at that point I had told them I don't want to be exposed to the public. I hated publicity. Still not fond of it. But it's necessary now. But you'll see my cousin John Zaffis. I was teaching him on that case.
The first question I have is connected to what Maria brought up. So I think I told you that Spence and I, where he's actually my husband sitting over there in another room, we went up to meet your grandmother, and we did one of the tours really because we wanted to meet your grandmother, because we have a tremendous amount of respect for her being a pioneer in the field, and we always just got such a good vibe from her.
Oh, she's far sweeter than any video or movie or book could ever portray. Her in reality, yeah, my real grandmother was just sweetness and light.
Sweetness and light, and a little bit of alien. So we refused to go into the museum, and I think we shocked everybody who was running the tour. We just said we really came up because we wanted to meet Lorraine, and we really wanted to see their artwork because we're both artists, and both of them were artists. And that is what we wanted to get out of that experience. And the folks who were there were kind of like, you know, I don't understand, like we're putting white light around you, and you know, we're protecting you as you go in. And I'm like, that's I appreciate that, and I'm sure that you're doing your best, but I'm going to err on the side of caution because I don't want to bump into any of these things, and I don't want to see them. I have no desire to see them, and I have no desire for them to see me. So they were really kind and let us go down into the basement and look at all of your Graham's artwork and your grandfather's fantastic Scooby-Doo, like they were fantastic paintings, so much fun. And then come back up and wait outside for everybody to come through the museum and be done. And we saw the priest so there's this 3 parts to this question. We saw the priest that lived in your Graham's house, right?
He lived in the in-law apartment above my grandmother's house.
Right.
So did I for a year and a half.
Okay. So he was just chanting and blessing the door constantly while everybody was inside. And we noticed a rooster cage right outside that door. And we also noticed the rooster cage that was inside in the kitchen. We were sitting all the way in the back, basically in the kitchen, in the last bench. And the sense that we got was, are these roosters like watchdogs? Like
No.
spiritual watchdogs? She just loved roosters.
One named Einstein was a white rooster who terrorized the neighborhood. And he got attacked by a dog one day and his back was broken. And my grandmother nursed that chicken back to health for a year with an eyedropper full of Kool-Aid as a way of giving him liquid. And after a year, he was healed. She put him in the cage out back. And one day, Miss Hannah, a hen, pops out of a tree, called by Einstein, I suppose. And my grandmother gave her a home as well. They ended up having 2 twin roosters, and the roosters became part of the household as well. It has nothing to do with the paranormal. My grandparents loved animals, and they rescued them all the time.